Welcome to the Writer Reads Seventh Son, Part 2. I. Very well, search him. No sooner had the command been given than three more garitzik materialized out of the surrounding stone. One pushed Seppelitus away from the table, propelling him backward until he stood against the wall and pinning him by the simple expedient of using his throat as a hold point. Futile as it was, Seppelitus kicked out and caught the creature in the stomach. It was like lashing out at stone. His foot jarred against the solidity of its hide, and its mouth twisted into a smile. Strip him, it said. We'll find how much fight he has naked. Misbegotten son of a, Seppelitus muttered, and reached for the magic that was his inheritance. The garitzik shook him so that his skull rattled against the wall, and the magic faded from his grasp. Easy to fix, it said, and held out its free hand. Collar, it ordered, as cold hands tugged at his clothing, loosening ties at his waist and chest and throat. The creature holding him lifted him so his feet were clear of the floor. Boots, pants, undergarments, all went in very short order. His leather jerkin and shirt followed, crystalline knives slicing through cloth and leather like they were butter. Seppelitus flinched as one blade scored a narrow line down his side. The garitzik holding him growled a warning. Claws ran through his hair, releasing the careful plait and removing the dagger and garrote he'd hidden there. At least one of them made a sound that meant it was impressed. As he was set on his feet, another brought a narrow round circlet that gleamed grey and was highlighted by silver. Seppelitus took a single step away from the wall. Not as smart as we thought, the garitzik said. Stand, it ordered, and a hand between his shoulder blades prevented his involuntary step back as the collar was lifted to his throat. Collar. Seppelitus froze. It was bad enough to be skin bare and mage collared. He didn't want to find out what might come next. The garitzik checked the fastening and then looked him in the eye. Try to call the magic. Seppelitus hesitated. Try, the garitzik ordered. We will see if the collar works. Try, it said again. You will be punished if you do not, and we will know. Seppelitus forced himself to hold the garitzik's gaze, and obeyed. He could sense the magic that permeated the garitzik's stronghold, reached for it with that part of him that could, and met a wall. Again, the garitzik ordered, and Seppelitus obeyed. This time he both reached for and called the magic, asking it to come, begging it. It rippled beyond an invisible barrier, but did not come. Instead, pain flared, bright and hot, spiking through his mind and cutting off his breath. Enough! The garitzik's voice cut through the pain, just as Seppelitus gathered himself in a panicked effort to break through to the magic on the other side. Enough! A sharp blow met the side of his head, dazing him and setting his ears ringing once more, while a softly spoken word caused the constriction at his throat to ease. Seppelitus found himself on the floor, both hands clutching at the stone band. No magic, the garitzik said. You understand? It held out a hand. I understand, Seppelitus said, and took the creature's hand, letting it help him to his feet. No magic. He glanced past it to the monster that had brought him to the chamber, and it followed his gaze. Its lips twitched. Our Lord, it said, as if that was explanation enough. And perhaps it is, Seppelitus thought, noting how his tormentor now stood aside so he could face his original escort. It gestured to the room, its walls seamless now the door was closed. Where did you think you could go? More garitzik materialized, one appearing in each corner of the chamber, and Seppelitus realized he had never had a chance, magic or no. Sit, the garitzik said, gesturing to one of the chairs at the table. Seppelitus sat, noting the chair back was a narrow arch, to allow room for their wings, he realized, resting his elbows on the table and cupping his hands beneath his chin. What he really wanted to do was fiddle with the collar until he worked out how to unlock it. Instead, he laced his fingers together and focused on the Gritzik lord. What deal made him important enough for one of those to come and fetch him? You are the seventh son of a seventh son of a seventh son. Seppelitus felt himself pale, felt his throat dry, so his voice came out in a croak. Yes. It smiled. Good. Seppelitus didn't know what chilled him more, the smile or the satisfaction he could hear in that single word. What has that got to do with your desire to hire me? Hire you? The Garitzik looked puzzled, and then its expression cleared. Ah, well, we were not exactly honest with your guild. Now there was a surprise. Not. Seppelitus gathered the courage to ask for the answer he didn't really want to know. What did you want me for? There is one who needs to trade your blood. To become a sorcerer? The Garitzik dipped its chin. It was the price the demon asked. Seppelitus felt his face grow pale, felt terror chill him further, forced himself to stay seated, gripping the sides of the chair, forced himself not to run, and made himself speak. You will trade me? No, we will deliver you. But what am I worth to you? The price of the bargain. Couldn't you get more for me on your own? Seppelitus heard desperation in his voice and hated it. The Garitzik looked stern. We made a bargain, it said. We do not go back on our bargains. Never? Not once they are sealed. Can they be unsealed? Only if they are broken by the other party. Can I make a counter offer? Not if it means we do not deliver as already agreed. Who is the other party? The ogre king, Palanchuk. You can tell me? Concealment of his identity was not part of the bargain. Seppelitus swallowed, filing that detail away for later, for if he ever had need of Garitzik aid. He looked at the Garitzik, and it looked back, waiting. Do you have any more questions? It asked, when the silence had gone on too long. Seppelitus shifted on his seat, trying to think of something to ask, anything, but his mind remained stubbornly blank. Well, the Garitzik pressed. Seppelitus shook his head and it stood. Then I have things I need to know. If it had come around the table, Seppelitus might have tried to run, but it did not. It merely took hold of one of the table's edges and slid the entire thing aside, taking an easy step forward to stand before him and place a hand on either side of his face. Seppelitus resisted the urge to reach up and grasp its wrists, fought to keep his grip on the edge of the chair as it knelt and bent its head toward him. He lost the battle as their foreheads touched and let go of the chair so he could clasp its face. Be still, it said. Be still, echoed in his mind. You can't, he protested, his legs flailing as he tried to push away and stand. Just ask. I'll tell you what you want to know. This is easier and faster. And the Garitzik cast its first question, like a fisherman with a fly. Was his father a wizard? Natural born or made? A true seventh son? And what of his mother? His sister? His grandfather? Where did they come from? Where did they dwell? What were his trades? Did Seppelitus have children? No bastard sons? Daughters? Were there 7? A pity. And why was he not a wizard? Too lazy to study? Had he always been able to call the magic? Just the one kind? Could he see or sense it? Did he know of others like himself? The questions continued, a relentless swarm of hooks and flies on gossamer fine lines cast into his head. And the answers came, striking like the emerald coraval or the blue scale teas to be drawn up and away. Seppelitus imagined the garitzik unhooking each one before putting it into a basket to be gutted later. And he fought, the answers dancing on the end of the line while his captor laughed at the sport and outplayed each one. When the creature had taken all it needed, it let him go, releasing his face and stepping back, grasping the table edge and pulling it back into place while Seppelitus trembled and gasped for breath. "Hume, motherless son," he managed, and leant forward, resting his arms on the table and his head on his arms. He did not see the Garitzik noble rise, although he sensed it move. His head felt choppy, like the ruffled waters of a lake, every thought a wave that beat against his skull, while his body ached in echo. Seppelitus did not feel like lifting his head to watch the monster leave. After all, the gargoyles were going to deliver him to an ogre who wanted to be a sorcerer, and there were too many to fight. Even if he could access his magic, what would be the point? Instead, he listened as the Garitzik noble walked across the chamber and opened the door, heard it pause, wondered why it spoke. "We are not motherless, seventh son." And the Garitzik's tone hinted at what kind of son it thought he might be. "But we are hatched. There are more appropriate insults."